Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to talk to Sue Hincenbergs about the retirement plan. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, I am beyond excited. I will say that this book, it just fired all the engines for me. I was like, wow. And this is your debut novel?
It sure is. Yeah.
Jeepers creepers. I mean, right out of the gate, Sue. Perfect. You knocked it out of the park.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So will you give the audience an overview about what the retirement plan is about?
Sure. It's not a how-to book on how to retire. It's funny. Every once in a while, somebody will come up to me and they'll say, "Do you have your MBA?" Or like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Whoa, you're totally missing the mark on this book. This is about murder." I don't know who's talking to you, but
Right.
So it's about four couples who have been friends for about 30 years, and they should be retiring, but they can't afford to because a few years back the husband's made a bad investment and lost all the retirement savings. So you can imagine how that's gone down in the marriages, right? They've just withered from the blame and the financial strain, and everybody's just going through the motions. But everything changes when one of the husbands dies in this crazy accident, because then the surviving wives see his widow get this huge insurance payout. And they soon realize their husbands have the same kind of insurance coverage. So now the only thing standing between them and their dream retirement are those husbands. So they do what anybody would do. They decide to get rid of them and they hire a hitman to kill them. But what they don't realize is that the husbands might not be the duds they think they are. And the husbands have already hired that same hitman for a job of their own.
It is absolutely magical, that setup. It is just, I was like, wow, because I'm 62 and, occasionally somebody says to me, "Oh, when are you going to retire?" And I'm like, when I drop dead, I don't know. We live in a different world. Some people, God bless them, are financially stable for the rest of their lives. I have lived my life and I have enjoyed it greatly. So of course I don't even have a partner to think about bumping off. So that sort of sucks as well.
Yeah.
It's also really nice that in your acknowledgments that you thank and acknowledge that your husband is very much alive, and I'm very grateful for that. So how was his input, or how was his reaction to what you were writing?
Well, I started writing really late in life, like 4 years ago, really. And while this is my first published novel, I tried to write two others and had no luck querying. So I've had this little hobby, since for like, I guess 5 years, right about now. So everybody was very good about it. Like I have three sons and my husband, and it was just like, "Oh, mom's got a hobby now. She's not knitting, so now we don't have to. Nobody has to wear any more of those funky socks." And now she just goes into this den and writes. And nobody gave me a hard time about it. They weren't particularly interested. Um, After a while, I think when you start something like this, I don't know how most people are, but I was pretty quiet about it. It was just like, I didn't broadcast, "Oh, I'm writing a book," because you just don't know if it's like, "I'm going on a diet," you just don't know how it's going to work. So you just are pretty private about it. Eventually, after it'd been quite a while, a couple of years, I did start to like tell people I'm working on a book. And sometimes I'd get a follow-up question. So, but the answer for my husband was that they were supportive, but not very interested. Like he never read it until the book was completely sold. I would discuss certain plot points with them, like just plausibility, and because there's a group of husbands that hang out, I would ask, like, if four guys were in a boat and they were talking about their marriages, like, would they really say all this, or would they not have gone there? And I had his feedback on that.
Which I think is something that, once again, that you did so deftly, in the fact that you gave us the insight of these four couples, which gets us to 8, which is, I will get to that point eventually. But we have four couples, so we have 8 different voices, 8 different opinions. How daunting, how exhilarating, how fun, how scary was writing a large cast of characters, because even though there are 4 couples, there are also 4 other people or 3 other people that factor, I'll get that word out eventually, into this plot, and they factor in very big. So how was that for you, I mean, did you have a huge board or?
Yeah, I had a spreadsheet and I had a little bit of the details about each one, and they all kind of filled in. I didn't have them fleshed out as I started writing. It just kind of they kind of embody themselves as I went through the process. In the beginning, I knew that there were I knew there was a wife. I knew there was a wife and a husband, and that there was going to be tension there, and there was going to be a conflict over money. And then I thought, it's just so much. If they're not together, and you needed people together, then you had to have friends, and because there's just so much fun in the friends, you know. So
Yes.
it was just like, yeah, it was a better journey to have company,
Yeah.
and so yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
go
And
ahead.
I loved that part of it. I thought, because here are four couples who've gone through their entire adult life. They've shared kids, they've shared experiences, they've shared picnics, they've shared cookouts and barbecues, they've shared successes and failures. Their failure was of a very large size when the husbands lost their retirement. And I was thinking that, it would take a good 30-year relationship for that not to fall apart. Had they only been friends for 5 years, they would have gone their separate ways. So by aging them to closer to 60, you give them such back history that they just simply cannot walk away. They know everything or almost everything, which is yet another thing. So I asked Sue before we started recording if she knew who Chubby Checker was, because Dan's little goofy comment on this one is, you gave us more twists than Chubby Checker. And I'm not joking. I was there for all of them. It was just amazing. What a fertile imagination you have.
Oh, thank you. I had a lot of fun putting it all together. Yeah. It was
Oh,
better than any jigsaw I've ever done.
Yes, and as I said earlier, each of the voices were so very different. So now let's talk a little bit about Hector and Brenda, which I thought in their setup, they have what someone on the outside may almost call a perfect marriage. Because here is a
Yeah.
couple that are so dedicated to one another that they constantly lift up each other. And they're the sort of the bad people, if I might say. So, what was the fun or the difference in writing their voices compared to the four couples?
Yeah, it was kind of a realization that it would be great to have that juxtaposition of having these four failing marriages that are long and old and weathered, and then having this one that's kind of like anti-typical of what you think, right? A hitman and his wife. I had I had Hector figured out pretty early. I didn't really have Brenda. I knew he was married and I knew he'd be a good husband because I wanted that. She didn't play into the plot so much until I was further into it, and I realized that what kind of role she could pick up, and then I just kind of beefed her up a little bit to kind of be a really good counterpoint to him.
Well, and we have in this country, just like in Canada, we have a lot of immigrants. And so you also got a chance to play up an immigrant family in a positive way, which I thought was really well done. We could have actually had a killer who was American, but in this instance, we had a killer who was not American. He was an immigrant. And I thought that factored in really well into this script of a bunch of characters.
I was very sensitive to that because I didn't want him to just be portrayed as a violent man. And actually, I think really he's one of the best characters in the book because I think he has so many different facets to him and a morality as well. But I did make a point of having another Latin character in the book that's the son-in-law's or the son's son-in-law or partner that was a good upstanding character. So as upstanding as Hector is, superficially you might say, oh, he's a hitman, he kills people, you know. But meanwhile, there's Estuardo, who's a lawyer and a really good partner to Paul, and I felt that kind of offset that.
Yes, and I thought it was very well done, and so there's just so many complex backstories that sort of filter in every now and then. So of the four couples, and I every time I ask an author this, I realize that I'm running, on thin ice to say, do you have a favorite character? But did you have a favorite couple?
I felt like Pam and Hank. I really felt I could identify with them. they say like, who do you feel is you or most like you? And in my mind, I would be like Pam, except I made her tall and slim with great legs because you know because I'm an author and I'm allowed to do that. So, and it was kind of funny when I got there. I thought, oh yeah, you have great legs, and words I will never hear, and I just wanted to hear it in that life. So I put it that there. But I
Good.
liked that she was feisty, and I liked that she was warm, and that she was like a caretaker, and she didn't put up with stuff. She was a doer. She got stuff done, and like all the women were, but and they kind of led. But she wasn't like a definite leader. I think it's like a moving square, right? That everybody it takes the lead at some point.
Yes, it's definitely an ensemble piece, but I did feel
Mhm.
that in a lot of ways, because you started out in the voice of Pam, I did
Mhm.
feel like she led us through the navigation of the waters, so to speak. And she was almost a natural leader, but all the characters had their own backstory that was very well fleshed out. I mean, I think the heartbreaking story to me was Shalisa and Andre. I mean,
Yeah.
that was just something
Yeah.
yet another twist I didn't quite see coming, but yet I think they had the biggest redemption by the end of the book.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how if I was gonna do that because I thought I didn't want it to all be a happy ending. I didn't want it tied up in a bow. But yet when I was getting there, I also didn't want I wanted it to be hopeful. And
Yes.
I think if there's a message in the book, I think it's that Um, in the wedding at the very end, the magistrato, he says about how whatever it was that you used, like why you decided to marry that person, hold on to that because that doesn't go away, right? A lot of things change, but whatever love was there is still there. And so I think just sometimes it needs, you know, revigorating. And it's like Brenda says something, or I think Pam says it in the book about how if you don't nourish something, it'll die, you know? And their marriages obviously were not well nourished.
Yes, and but I did think, Sue, that you gave us a realism in that, in the fact that, when something really, really goes wrong in a relationship, whether it's a marriage, a business relationship, whatever it is, when something really goes wrong, it's very easy to let it just sour and to sit there and then to
Mhm.
sort of backstroke and bathe in it. Because, honestly, facing a huge heartbreak is difficult on humans. It's, something we can't whitewash. But yet at the same time, there was so much hope in this and so much humor. I mean, I think honestly, the humor part was the thing that got me the most. I mean, there were some seriously laugh out loud moments. And I just think of poor Padma, who by the end of the run, I almost felt sorry for, because having a mother
Yeah.
that's a narcissist is not an easy life. So,
Yeah.
did
True.
you enjoy writing Padma?
I did. I felt that, this is my first time really writing, but so I said how I wrote the two others that I did not get published, and I feel the retirement plan's my Cinderella story on the heels of these two ugly stepsisters. Um, yeah, but I was trying to like figure out, and I was taking courses and listening to podcasts and that, and I understood about character arc. Like all these were new terms to me, and I realized that Padma needed to have an arc, and that was just kind of coming into her own being and being able to walk away from being diminished. So I loved having that kind of triumphant, moment for her.
Yes, and there again, you brought hope to Padma at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So now we have to talk about the most important person in the book, and that's Elmer. So do you
Oh
have an
yeah.
Elmer in your life?
Oh my gosh, do I ever? Okay, hold on. You can
All
see
right.
him. Let me see if we can. Let me see. Okay. Oh, there.
Oh, there.
Yep, here
Oh,
he
how
is.
cute.
Yeah, that's Kramer.
Kramer.
Okay, and that was literally how he came to be in the book. I was almost finished writing the book, and I realized the villain says, "Oh, I'm not a villain." And I thought, yeah, like how do you know he's not a villain? He's saying I'm just an accountant. And it's like, yeah. So one of the books I'd read, the craft books, was Save the Cat. So I knew the Save the Cat mentality that
Yes.
yeah, if you save an animal, it shows you're a hero. So conversely, if you're mean to an animal, it must show you're a villain. So cue the dog. I looked beside me and I thought, There's Kramer. And everything about Elmer in the book is Kramer. He's a middle-aged, scruffy rescue dog. He's missing half his teeth. He's lying, his head's right on the air conditioning vent right now. You give him vents or you give him treats, he spits them out unless they're his like favorite. So all those things were him. So I just like wrote him right into the book. I wish I could say it was my imagination, but it was my dog.
Well, and then when Elmer sort of makes a discovery late in the book, which I won't give away because it's a bit of a spoiler. Honestly, that just tugged at my heartstrings so much because, you know, animals give to people who love animals. Animals give back and they don't forget. And that was something in Elmer that I was like, oh my gosh, you know, there goes the waterworks and the whole 9 yards, you know.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Animals know.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's something also that in this book. So there are a couple of interactions that Elmer has with other characters. And I just love the fact that there were positive and not so positive interactions. And not in a bad way. Elmer's a good dog, but there are just times where Elmer's like, I'm not having any of this. And I thought it was exactly what you would experience in real life.
Yeah, they're the best barometer. And I just, since I had him there, I just used him as the barometer.
I love that. So, as I mentioned a couple of times, this is an enormous cast of characters. I kept what I like to call a cheat sheet because I have to do that, you know, because I'm not going to rely on this memory. You know, I'm not sure where I am some days.
Yeah.
But I did think in looking at it cinematically, I am curious, have you had any nibbles for television or movie? Because good.
Oh yeah, right away. Like even actually before right about the same time we were selling the publishing, we had that deal. The movie deal happened right away. So it's like it's.
I did not know this.
Oh yeah, it got snapped up pretty quickly. It was really good. It was like everything about it was great. In that WME represented it, they read it. They went to the Frankfurt Book Fair, and I'm told agents, when they go to these book fairs, come away with hundreds of books. And the agents read mine on the flight home. And when they landed, they called my book agent and said, yeah, we'll rep this for film and TV. They sold it within the month. And we're supposed to have a script ready this month. They're circling back after the long weekend. Yeah.
Holy cow. Congratulations,
so
Sue.
We'll see. Thank you.
I just think that's so wonderful because I think it's written extraordinarily cinematically. And I think because the cast is a large cast, it makes it easier to sell it and to produce it because you're not relying on one or two really huge name stars. This is an ensemble cast. So congratulations. That makes me very happy to know. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I love the idea of it. I'm sorry, but I'm just not a fan of the Marvel and the superhero movies. Like I like movies about people and they're doing things. My favorite genre of movie is like bad people doing bad things to other bad people, like the Coen brothers, Quentin Tarantino, anything too that has that and brings in humor. So I wrote it with that in mind. Like I wrote it I was thinking of the Coen brothers, and I just watched the movie Get Shorty and read the book Get Shorty, Elmer Leonard's book, as I was entering this project. So I like the pacing and the twists and the humor. So I just think there's so much great talent in their 60s now in Hollywood that I think I'd love to see it actually make it and get to the screen.
I hope it does as well because it so deservedly needs to happen. So
yeah.
What's next for Sue Hinchenbergs?
Well, now that I know what my jam is, and my jam is bad people doing bad things to other bad people, I'm writing a book like that's bad things in the neighborhood. This time they're 40, but it's like the same activity. Like I felt with these characters in the retirement plan, they were 60, but they could have been 40, right? The only thing that age mattered was that they had run out of time. Like they were 20 years late into their career to make money to retire. So there was a ticking clock. But to me, it's the same kind of people, like, 40 to 60, only the 60-year-olds wear their shorts longer,
Right. Yes, that's it. That's a very big observation. And I agree. Some of us should anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Sue, this is so wonderful. Again, the book is The Retirement Plan, is by Sue Hincenbergs, and it is absolutely magical and marvelous. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for your interest. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I've had a great time. Thank you. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at OutWithDan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.